Starting up Instagram. 2, 1.
Welcome, guys. We are just getting set. We're going to give it a minute like always and make sure all of our streams are live. We're going live to a couple cameras tonight to all our different feeds. So again, just giving it a second just to make sure that we are all set. So bear with us here, but I welcome you, definitely. For everybody new, I am Nate Zelinsky. Hopefully a lot of you have been joining us. Hopefully we also have a lot of new faces here. So again, just giving it 1 second to make sure we are all logged in. We got our producer Devin behind us, social media manager. He's watching all the cameras, watching all the feeds. He'll give me the green light when everything is up and running. So again, yeah, it just takes a second here to do a sound check and make sure we're set. So bear with us, and we'll be right to our hunts here in just a second. Hopefully some people are getting prepped. Hopefully some of you have been out in the field. I know a lot of western hunts are taking place. How are we looking, Devin?
1 second.
Again, guys, we're just checking it out. We got a lot of cameras, so I know I'm looking right at hopefully a couple of you here, but there's a lot of cameras on a tripod. So, guys, I think we are all set. We are finally live on all the cameras. Guys, welcome. I am Nate Zelinsky. It's an honor to be here. Huge thanks to Bowtech for letting us grab their live stream tonight and go live. We've been doing this for a couple months now. It's all about education with us, guys. There's a lot of people that talk different things on a lot of different feeds across social media, but I am here to deliver 100% education. My goal is to make everybody a more educated hunter, which hopefully leads to being a more successful hunter. So again, that's our main goal here tonight. So you're a better hunter in the woods there. So you can also be watching this on the Diamond Facebook page. A huge welcome to all of you, as well as the Bowtech Instagram page. Also a huge thanks to Black Gold Sights, Ripcord Rests, as well as Tight Spot Quivers. Huge thanks to them too, guys. We put that gear to work this week. We're actually going to be showing an antelope or a pronghorn hunt here just shortly, and we know that we put all those Ripcord Rests and all that to the test this week, and it performed flawlessly. Put an animal on the ground for us. Also, huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops in Denver for going live with this feed. So huge thanks to them. And guys, share this. If you guys are struggling, let's just say your parents, your brother, somebody is not social friendly amongst you, but you want to have them watch this feed, you can always go to bowtech.com and watch the feed there. So again, you can always go to bowtech.com to watch the feed there. So tell your friends, tell your uncles, your grandparents. Again, if anybody is not social friendly, you can always go to the Bowtech website, bowtech.com, and you can watch it there. So guys, join along. Also, throughout the course of the night, guys, this really is the pre-season. We have a lot of big game hunts going on right now. Again, like we said, a lot of stuff in the western side where a lot of guys are going live. Or going on these hunts. But if you haven't gone on the big game hunts, hopefully in the next week or so, it will all be happening. So hopefully it will all be going true very, very shortly. So hopefully all these hunts are happening for you. I know that Utah last week had one of the best opening mule deer hunts they've had in years. Guys, the condition lined up. A lot of great antler growth. They had a lot of great vegetation, so a lot of quiet in the woods. So again, they had green grass, nothing's dry. And that greener grass allowed for some flawless stock. So we know a lot of hunters in Utah had, again, the best opening mule deer hunt they ever had last week. So huge congratulations to those guys that harvested those big bucks. And again, as we go forth in the opening of all the elk seasons here in the next week, good luck to everybody out there doing that. So again, that's just kind of an update. But throughout the course of the evening, guys, we're going to walk you through all the big game things. As again, it's the final steps. Most of the big game hunts, the elk, the mule deer, the bear in the western United States are going to happen this next weekend. If not, following over the next 2 weeks is basically when everything is in full swing for these big game hunts. So we're going to walk you through deer, elk, bear, pronghorn. We're going to hopefully walk you through the final steps where we've been taking all the education that we've been talking about for the last couple months. Again, so the last couple months of education, we're putting it into play, putting it into the field, and making it a successful hunt as we actually go out into the woods with weapons in hand. So again, we've got the bows now. It's no longer scouting. It is the real deal. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So if you have these questions, if you've been struggling, send your questions in. Tag it. Comment right now. Comment your questions as we go forth. Hey, man, Nate, can you help me out? I've been, stalking this big mule deer. It goes live next week. I'm actually going to hunt him. Here's a couple questions I've had. Hey, I'm chasing elk. I'm watching these bulls. They're hard horn. They're starting to chase some cows. What should be my strategy next week? Comment those kind of questions, guys. We'll walk you through these individual questions. We'll take your situation. I'll do my best to answer them and hopefully get those questions answered to where you're successful this coming week. But to start off, I had my first hunt this last week. Unfortunately, this hunt literally only lasted, I think, 2 hours on my pronghorn hunt this week. So again, 2 hours this week on the pronghorn hunt. It went quick, but when it goes quick, it was successful, and it was a lot of fun. So we're really excited about that. Guys, we're actually going to throw to this video feed right here, so hopefully everybody can watch this. For everybody on Instagram, we're actually going to have to turn this channel. So we have our Mevo camo for everything on Facebook can go straight to this, but everybody on Instagram, it might be a little shaky for a second, but we're going to turn everything to hopefully where everybody can see this hunt. But guys, a lot of you watched this hunt. It was on social media all week. Huge thank Mossy Oak played it. There's a lot of different people that played this hunt this week. But this actually happened last Wednesday. So last Wednesday was when this hunt actually took place, and this is us in the field. Guys, that hillside right there was where it all started. So I actually, on this pronghorn hunt, again, we're going to walk you through this hunt because a lot of guys saw the feed but saying, hey, how did it happen? How did it go down? Walk us through it. Obviously, a 5-minute video was actually over the course of about 2 hours of us in the field before that antelope hit the ground. But as we walk you through this is where it all started. I actually drove out in the middle of the field where I've been seeing all of my bucks. And out there in the middle of that field, so again, you can see it right there. But on that hillside, I actually had some animals bedded down. And that's the first thing that I look for when I get out there to do that. I love seeing bedded down animals, or I love seeing animals that are going a little slower than normal. So again, you saw that hillside there. We can go ahead and play that, Devin. So again, we started off, there's a buck actually bedded by itself right up on that hillside. Again, you'll see it here in just a second, but this hillside is right here behind us. I'm actually climbing up it. The hill drops off the other side. We're going to continue playing it. But I had these bucks bedded. I had a buck and a bunch of does bedded. And I love that. It's rare to see it first thing in the morning to see those animals bedded. They're usually chasing everybody around or chasing the does around first thing in the morning. But they were bedded early, so that was the first buck we went for. Anytime that they're bedded, we know we have a good idea. They're not moving very fast. They're not moving very far, so we're going to chase them. So we had them bedded. We drove around to get our wind in the right direction. You can't see on the TV, but our wind is actually coming basically across this flat hillside. And I'm on a hill, and the hill basically tapers off right here in front of me. So just ahead of us is where those animals were actually bedded down. So we're actually sneaking across this hillside right there to hopefully come over that hill and get a shot. Now, the big problem with that is very rarely do those pronghorns get themselves up against cover, up against the hillside. So with that being said, I knew that as I crested that hill, as I came over, I know I used that landmark as that tree. So again, I made a landmark when I was on the dark side, on the back side of that hill. And as we came up, I knew it was going to be quick. I knew that as we came over this hill, would have shadows, that it would have vision. And they know to look for that kind of stuff as they're almost scared of their own shadow and they don't want to get near those hillsides. So I'm easing over very slow. Arrow on rest, arrows knocked, holding the rangefinder. Everybody asks what I'm doing. I'm actually holding the rangefinder in that right hand right there as we come over the hill. And as I came over, I actually saw some more pronghorn out in the field feeding. As I came over, I looked a little closer. I knew they weren't in that 40-yard range where I had originally seen them bedded. So as we come over, I knew they weren't there. I knew they were too far away, so we went ahead and stepped over the hill. As we stepped over the hill, they took off. But I stepped over the hill fast. People asked it. They said, why are they running? Why'd you do a bad stalk? When I saw them down there 200 yards away, there was no cover. I knew we didn't have our decoy with us, so I just went ahead and stood up. Again, we have 2 camera guys following us behind us, and those animals took off, basically running around. You can also see there's a tremendous water hole. That's a water hole that they use when it's dry. They use that water hole nonstop. When it's super moist like it is right now, we've been getting rain for 15 days straight prior to this hunt. So every little nook and cranny in these fields have moisture in it. So hunting water just isn't as clean for us. Again, sitting on water, it works. It's a great way to harvest these animals, but in this type situation, let's go ahead and pause it right there, Devin, if you can for 1 second. Sitting on that water is something that would work if we sat on it for multiple days in a row, but in this type situation, I can't do that. I don't have the patience. I'm all about spot and stalk. I'm all about chasing these animals down. Again, it's just my style. And in this type situation, our animals were running just enough to where the spot and stalk, the hunting decoys, is a great way to target these animals. So we're going to kind of walk you through that. But again, water's great. I don't ever want to make anything bad. A lot of people talked about hunting water in this video because we talked about it. hunting water for pronghorn is probably the most successful way to do it. But again, for me personally, my style, I hate sitting there for 5 days straight all day long waiting for them to come to us. I'd rather try to select the few animals that I can and chase those. So my whole goal going into this hunt is to, one, find animals that are approachable to just spot and stalk. Walk up and literally let an arrow fly and try to shoot them like we did on that first stalk. They were bedded up a hillside. I came over that hillside hoping to make a shot. It didn't work. So from at that point in time, I glassed around. I'm looking for other animals that would present a spot and stalk style hunt or a decoy style hunt. And in this type situation, I actually got into a situation where I had another buck chasing does. They were chasing them hard, so we actually came out there with a decoy. A lot of people gave me a hard time about your decoy. Guys, these animals, when rutting enough, again, the main rut's still a ways away, but these animals are kind of in that pre-rut. They're chasing each other around. The bucks are chasing bucks. The bucks are chasing does. There's a lot of animals running around, and literally, they're such a curious animal. These pronghorns are so curious. I mean, we hunt them with mirrors. You put a mirror in the field, and they'll come check it out because they're so curious. So in this situation, I'm actually using a pronghorn, or excuse me, a mule deer archery target is my main decoy. I took the antlers off of this mule deer archery target, and it makes a tremendous pronghorn decoy. You know, it's kind of sun faded, so it's kind of the same color as a pronghorn, and it gets the job done all day long. So let's hit play here, Devin. Perfect. So we started the decoy. So now I'm sitting here. These pronghorns are actually up on this hillside. It's above my head, and I'm moving it around. Everybody asks, why are you doing that? You know, when we go out with a decoy, we're all about stealth. We hide behind it. We barely move it. This buck right here is chasing these does so hard. If I set that decoy totally still, they never pay attention to it. They never even notice it. And I would say that's one of the biggest failures that a lot of hunters make when hunting with decoys is they're so quiet, they're so stealthy that the bucks that they're chasing, everybody thinks that they didn't want the decoy when in reality they didn't even notice it. When these animals are moving around, let's freeze it right there for a second, Devin. When these animals are moving around, they're very noticeable. I mean, they stand out amongst these super flat plains. So if you just have a decoy sitting totally still, very rarely do these other pronghorns ever see the decoy, so they're not even noticed. So when we go out, I make sure that it's above my head. I move that decoy around as much as possible until I know the pronghorn sees it. Once I know they see it, I bring it down lower. I still get some movement because, again, something sitting totally still is almost a foreign object to them. When it's sitting totally still, these other pronghorn are like, what's going on with that? Why is it not moving? In the natural situation where animals are actually moving around, smelling each other, checking each other out, they always have some sort of movement. So again, I always have some sort of movement to make sure the other pronghorn know, hey, I'm alive, I'm legit, I'm a good live animal. Again, it's all about being natural. So I always have some sort of movement in that decoy to make sure that I fit in with all the other animals out there. So again, I do a lot of movement until I know that that other animal has seen me. When that buck sees me, then I kind of set it lower and I just bring it down to slighter movement, and these animals start to come. Now, the one big thing that I personally do different when I'm decoy hunting versus most hunters expect the other buck, the pronghorn, to come 100% of the way to me. And I don't think it's fair for me, the hunter, to ask these animals to come 100% to me. And that's where a lot of hunters fail. A lot of hunters and the pronghorn hunters out there right now that are struggling, especially with decoys, are guys that are literally expecting this animal to come from way up here on this hill all the way down to me. So once I get their attention and they start coming to me, I pick the decoy up slightly, I walk 20 yards, 30 yards, set it down. I let them come 100 yards. I pick it up, I go 20, 30 yards, moving it slightly, staying as low as I can. I'm a big guy. I don't fit behind this, but I do my best. Again, they'll look right through you. Everybody's seen it. You've seen it with whitetail. You've seen it with elk. These animals will look through you, the hunter, if they're running hard enough. If you have good calls, a good decoy, whatever your scenario is of why you're working a rutting animal, again, they look right through it because they're so focused on the call. In this case, they're focused on that decoy. So me, I'm hiding my best behind it, but I'm meeting that animal in the middle. Now, a lot of this footage doesn't show that because it happens fast. Camera guys are trying to get on me, then I pick it up, I shimmy a little bit, and they're trying to shimmy with me, so we miss some of that footage as we're kind of bouncing around. But again, I'm meeting these animals as we go. Let's hit play there, Devin. So again, as we're doing this, this buck is now right there. So this buck's I forget what he was, 140 yards at that point in time, and he's walking to us, then he kind of walks, and it looks like he's walking away, but he's just walking sideways. Then he walks to us and walks away. So the second that buck, again, starts to walk a little bit more, trying to get around me to win me, I pick up that decoy real quick, and I shimmy that 20, 30 yards. On this particular animal, from about right here, I pick it up, and I come about 20 yards, and that buck literally trotted at us. Let's freeze it right there, Devin. So I literally picked it up, and I walked about 20 yards, set it down just to see what he would do, and all of a sudden, we have a gallop, and this buck kind of swung around a little bit. I had to turn a little bit. Originally, that picture was right here. He kind of came around, but came right in. We had to make a quick call, kind of pull the camera guys in a little closer, but I propped up the decoy, and he literally was running in. He went from 140, 120 to 140 yards out, moved that decoy 20 feet, 20 yards, and he came right in. So at this point in time, it was fast. I mean, that's all I could do to set that up, get a range, and get that arrow ready to fly. So let's hit play there, Devin. And this buck is literally kind of walking around. And you can see I drew at a downward angle. I didn't want to draw straight at it to where he saw that movement straight at him. So I drew down, spun right on that pronghorn. So again, the decoy's right here. I drew kind of facing down to where the bow and most of my movement of my body was covered behind that decoy. Again, you don't have to be overly stealthy, but again, right there, I drew down behind it, went up right over the shoulder of that decoy, and made that perfect shot. And I think the shot ended up being, 43 yards, what the final shot was. And then the other big thing, when you actually see me walk up to that pronghorn, everybody asks, hey, we just talked about shot placement. You put that arrow right in the shoulder of that pronghorn. That buck was actually quartering to me. I knew that I had it 43 yards or 45 yards. I knew I had enough energy on a pronghorn to where I could go through that shoulder and get double lung as I came out on the opposite side of the animal. Again, if you remember, we talked about it last week. It's all about the line, where I put that line going through that animal. So that animal presented that type shot. I knew that at 40 yards, I didn't have much time. So I drew the bow, came over the decoy, let it fly, made a perfect shot. The pronghorn ran about 40 yards in that situation, 45 yards, and literally went from full living to totally, passed away in about 3 seconds, 4 seconds in that type situation. So you can see I shot him right there at that kind of joint in that shoulder as he was kind of lifting up his leg. It went directly across, did get both lungs as well as some heart, and made an absolute extremely lethal shot. And that pronghorn went away extremely quickly. Again, it just it absolutely knocked him out. And again, full pass through. We by shooting him through the shoulder and double lungs at 43 yards with that rain 7, guys, we ended up getting about 40 yards of a pass through. So again, as far as that shot was, I had that much of a pass through on the opposite side of that animal as we went through there. So you can see the shot again right there on that knuckle, went right through basically the edge of that shoulder blade, right through the heart and out to that double lung. And again, awesome first hunt. Perfect, Evan. We are good there. Now, guys, that was fast. There's no doubt about it. This is, again, our first time kind of working with this new software. So if I rushed through that or it was somewhat confusing, I apologize. Again, you can watch the full hunt, the live hunt, on any of these feeds. So, again, go back to the Bowtech website or go back to the Bowtech Facebook page. You can go back to Diamond's Facebook page. You can go to my personal Nate Zelinsky Facebook page. Go to any of those Facebook pages and you will see that hunt in action and watch the whole thing with audio. And, again, if it was a little bouncy around as I was walking through this, I apologize about that. But again, it's all Nate Zelinsky, Nate Zelinsky on Facebook, as well as Nate Zelinsky on YouTube. So you can always go to the YouTube page, Nate Zelinsky, and watch any of these hunts full in live action. So guys, again, if that was crazy, we apologize. But the moral of the story, if you have a pronghorn tag and you are out there right now doing this, if you're sitting on water, I encourage you to try to decoy hunt. The biggest thing when trying to do that decoy hunts, number one, look around. Try to find some bucks that are showing some signs of that rut taking place, whether it's bucks not wanting other bucks near them and they're chasing each other around, and I use really a heavy buck decoy. If you have a situation of bucks chasing some does, I would definitely use a doe decoy and have those animals come in. With that said, I want to touch base on that real quick before we move on to all the other things we're going to talk about tonight. People ask why I use a doe decoy versus a buck decoy. A lot of times a buck decoy will draw other bucks in quicker, more aggressive. but that's exactly what happens. I can't tell you how many times I've had a buck decoy, and all of a sudden I have these other pronghorn coming in, and they almost come in too fast. I mean, I've had them to where I've had to roll out of the way and they knock my decoy over. So when I have a buck decoy, sometimes these other bucks come in so fast, so hot, that I'm just trying to get a range as they're coming in, and sometimes it happens so fast it creates almost a fluster of a situation, and a lot of times I miss my opportunity because they come in too fast. When I use a doe decoy, it happens a little slower. They still come into a shootable yardage, but it happens a little slower, giving me, the hunter, more opportunity. Like I said in that video, they come in straight on, then they kind of turn and go around. Come in straight on, kind of turn and go around. They're basically, showing themselves off, doing that buff up, that overall showing themselves off, if you would. So again, using a doe decoy gives me a little more of an opportunity, generally speaking, to take a shot. So we're a huge fan of the doe decoy versus the buck decoy. If they're not into the does yet, if they're just chasing, buck on buck, chasing each other around, you almost have to use the buck decoy. But if it's possible, I choose to use the doe decoy. Again, just it slows them down, gives me the opportunity. But if you haven't done it, number one, move the decoy around. Make sure they see it. Once they see it, continue to still come to them. Don't expect them to come 100% of the way. Even if you give 20 and they give 80, you're still going to move a little bit with them and just come to them to show that you're willing, show that you're helping the situation, that you are interested. So as long as you're willing to come a little bit towards them, it will really help that situation out, and it's going to lead to you having more shots. So again, if you've had bad experiences with decoys, a lot of times, one, they probably didn't see it. Two, you probably didn't go to them just enough. So even once they're committed, I still come to them just a little bit. I move that decoy side to side as I slowly ease towards them. And once I do that, again, it's going to pique their interest. It's going to make it much more successful in the long run because, again, it's more natural that you're another animal interested in them and you meet them halfway. So, again, that's the style hunt that I did on that hunt. It literally took us 2 hours of that first day of the season for me personally, and I had that animal on the ground. It was a very successful hunt. And guys, if it wouldn't have worked out on that one, I would have cruised around, found another buck that was interested, and I would have used the decoy on that, and more than likely probably would have had that success because, again, I did my homework. I knew that they were in that kind of pre-rut stage. I knew the decoys were working. And again, it was a very simple situation for us personally. But hopefully that helps you out with your situation if you have a pronghorn tag, if you're struggling. Try the decoys. It doesn't have to be an impeccable pronghorn decoy. Again, I'm using a mule deer archery target. Worked fantastic. Rough it up, lighten it up, put some lighter spray paint on it, make it look somewhat like a pronghorn, and I promise you it's going to get the job done for you. A lot of times we even used to take cardboard cutouts. Cardboard, cut it out like the shape of a pronghorn, spray paint it up, and literally for $10 you can have an amazing decoy. So there's a lot of option when it comes to decoys. But number one, move it around till they see it, come to them. Those are the two things that the average hunter does not do that leads to failure. So again, make sure they see it, add movement as you go to them, meet them in the middle, and that should increase your odds 100%, and hopefully put that animal on the ground for you. So guys, that was my hunt. I hope you enjoyed it. As we go forth over the next 3 months of hunting season, we will have a lot of hunts like that, and every week we're going to kind of go over those hunts, tell you what made them successful for us and what made the failures. Again, the very first stock we made was a complete failure. They were bedded down. We thought we had them. It took us too long to get to those animals. Basically, doing the whole camera crew thing, talking to the camera, leading up to it, getting ourselves in order. Basically just took too long. Those animals got out of their beds, started feeding. They fed away from us. We had no chance at that point in time. So, we basically walked out and blew them out and moved on to the next animal. So basically that was how we led to that. Moved to the second stock, found an animal much more in the rut, and it walked right in, and we got the shot done. So definitely had a failure as well as had a success. So again, always having those options of how you're going to approach it. Again, if the spot and stock didn't work, we moved to a decoy, and it was successful for us. If you have questions, you've seen that situation, let's say you've been using decoys and you've had failures, bring your questions, guys. Comment. Make sure you bring those questions. We will answer your questions and hopefully make you, again, more successful. That's the whole idea of the live feed. Let's engage. Let's work together. So send your questions on in. Now, as we go forth, we're going to start talking about the other options of hunting. Like we said, Utah had their opener mule deer hunt last week. It was phenomenal. Depending on where you're at, which state you're at, again, we're broadcasting live from Colorado, but we try to stay in touch with all the western states, Arizona, New Mexico, Idaho, Montana, all these type states. we're trying to have some sort of an engagement with. So we're trying to stay touch on the rut conditions, on the animals in these areas. As we go forth, especially starting in about 2 weeks, as we really start to see the deer heavily into a hard horde stage and basically changing up their summer patterns, as we see the elk start to rut, we're going to bring you live information, again, straight information from the last couple days of where the rut's at, what the animals are doing. So again, we will be your information headquarters going forth, especially starting in about 2 weeks when everything starts to change up, when everything starts to take place. So make sure you stay tuned, if nothing else, just for that, to get that information. But where we're at here, we're going to start talking about the deer first. Again, the big mule deers, Utah had that amazing hunt. Colorado, the first really chance at mule deer is going to be next Saturday. That's going to be across the state in a lot of western states. I know, Arizona had some great hunts, and New Mexico is starting those hunts. But as we go forth in the mule deer hunting, that's the first animal we're going to talk about. Generally speaking, you have a couple ways to hunt these animals. Spot and stock is probably going to be the most successful. Guys are literally from afar, glassing, finding these animals, getting their wind right, and sneaking up to make that approach. That's going to be the most common way to hunt these animals. Me personally, when I'm doing a spot and stock, if these animals are going into timber to bed, I'm trying to make my shot and make my approach in the first thing in the morning as they're moving into their beds, and then first thing in the afternoon as they're leaving their beds. I'm hoping to find some of these bigger bucks not utilizing the timber. It's really going to depend on your situation, but most of these bucks are going to bed down in scrub brush. They're going to bed down in small little drainages, little indentions in the hillside. A lot of these bucks are going to bed down somewhat open, but yet in cover. So again, it's open hillsides, but it's thicker cover that they're actually laying down in. But a lot of these bigger mule deer like that because they want to make sure that they still have clear vision. They still have great sound to know if any predators are approaching. Sometimes if they get into too thick a timber, it kind of gets too damp inside that thicker timber, and a lot of times predators can sneak up on these big mule deer and pose a threat to them. So a lot of times these bigger deer are going to bed somewhat in open country, and that's the best thing for it. So my approach on these mule deer next weekend, I'm going to stay with these animals. I'm going to glass them from afar. I'm going to get somewhat close. Somewhat close could be as close as 100 yards, could be as close as 500 yards, depending on my wind and depending on my personal situation, the area that I'm in. But I usually am going to let these animals, I'm going to get close, and I'm going to let them bed down. Once these animals bed down, that's when I personally am going to make my approach. I actually usually let them bed. I let them be in the bed for maybe 30 minutes. I let them get very comfortable. If they immediately hit the bed and you approach, a lot of times they're still uneasy. They haven't, basically drifted off, and they can somewhat, blow the hunt in that fashion. So I'm going to let them bed down half hour, 45 minutes, an hour if it does. Let that sun get high in the sky. Let the thermals get a very good direction. If you're out there and the wind's basically just starting to swirl around, let that wind get in a consistent direction before you make that approach. But my goal, let them bed down, let them get drowsy, let the sun get high in the sky, let them get hot, let them get very comfortable in their beds, let the conditions get very stable. Once the conditions are stable, and I kind of watch the situation, I know where all the deer are at, whether a big buck's independent or if he's with another group of deer, I kind of learn the situation, make sure everything is stable. And at that point in time, I make my approach. Hopefully, I'm going to sneak up within a comfortable range. Again, whatever that's 20 yards, 40 yards, whatever your range as an archery hunter is, or if you have a situation of a muzzleloader or a rifle. I get into my comfortable range. At that point in time, I'm going to try to get that animal to stand up out of its bed. If I know through scouting that these animals are somewhat spooky, if they're a nervous animal, and that's going to be animal to animal. If they're a nervous animal, I will literally get within range and I'll sit there and I'll let that animal naturally stand up. So whether he stands up a couple times during the day just to reposition himself in their beds, stands up to go get a drink, stands up to start feeding for the afternoon. They might bed for 30 minutes before they move. They might bed for 6 hours before they move. But I'm going to literally get within range, and if it's a nervous animal, I will let him naturally stand up. Hopefully when the second I see those antlers start to move that he's going to stand up, I'll draw that bow back, let him stand, and hopefully make that shot. As I approach these animals, I hope to find some sort of shooting lane or some sort of position that when that animal stands up, hopefully I have a shot. other animals. A lot of these mule deer that we watch. I watched a giant buck this week. You guys might have seen the footage on my Facebook page. I watched this big giant buck, 34 wide, just an absolute monster. And this buck is scared of nothing. I'm not sure if he lived somewhere else where he was around people and got comfortable. And, you know, this buck lives above tree line. But I don't know if he got comfortable at some point in his life and, you know, he's brought that with him. I don't know if he's never seen a person before. Maybe he lives in such back country that I found him in. Maybe he's never seen a person or a predator and he's calm that way. But this animal literally, I walked into him. I bumped into him. Total accident. I saw him from 5 miles away, saw him on a hillside, so I went in to investigate the next day, and I thought he was going to be one more ridge over, and I bumped into him at 100 yards. This animal was a little bit frightened when he first saw me, looked at me, and after staring at him for a minute, he went back to feeding and bedded down right in front of me. I mean, this buck literally had no fear of me. I could have walked up to 40 yards and shot him that day with no fear. Now, obviously, it's a week before the season or 10 days before the season. So who knows what's going to happen as archery season actually approaches and if this buck will remain that approachable. But you have bucks like that that have no fear. So if I have a buck that's not that spooky, he's not that scared, a lot of times I'll let that animal bed, I'll walk up with that comfortable distance, just like we're talking about, and I'll actually get close, I'll draw my bow back, I'll get settled, I'll get anchored, and I'll just whistle. And when that buck stands up, I let that arrow fly and hopefully make that connection and make that kill. But those are my best results for chasing those mule deer. I usually stay with them in a spot and stock fashion, hopefully let them bed down in open country, let the thermals get right, let the conditions get normal, sneak up to my comfortable distance, and then I either wait for them to naturally stand up, or if a situation where I know the animals aren't that spooky, I'll make noise. You whistle, make a grunt. Hopefully they stand up, present the shot, and hopefully it's a done deal. And that's my favorite way to hunt them, and that's probably my most successful way to hunt these muleys first thing in the season. The other option, my other next best approach for those big mule deer is hunting water. Again, on a normal year where I have less water in the average areas, water is one of my go-to things. So usually I will sit on water, wait for them to come drink midday, and it's a great approach. In Colorado and a lot of portions of Utah right now, we have more rain than we've ever had. So we have so much moisture that every indention of the hillside has water in it. Every little nook and cranny, every rock, it has water underneath it. So right now we have so much moisture that these animals aren't as religious about hitting water as they normally would be. So this year, water is not as much of a game changer for me as it would be on a normal year. So right now, I'm putting most of my focus on the muleys on a spot and stock, bedding, and standing them up out of their beds to make that shot. But if you're in an area that's drier, I'd put a huge focus on that water. Water is something that they have to have. So whether they're getting it off grass or an indention or actually traveling to a water source, water is a great approach. Again, for us personally, there's so much water that it's harder to build that pattern. So we're putting more emphasis on that spot and stock, just like we did on that pronghorn. But really, build it to your individual situation. But I'll tell you what, as we go forth this next weekend, I cannot wait to see all these mule deer hunts, see the hunts that are taking place. It seems like across the Rocky Mountain region, really across the United States, we're seeing more bucks, better antler growth. It seems like our deer populations are skyrocketing. I know that certain portions, especially here in Colorado, we had a very rough winter. So like the Gunnison Valley had quite a bit of a winter kill. But the bucks that are remaining, the bucks that did not get affected by that, are looking great. So we'll really watch as we kind of go forth through the year, watch the counts. But most areas are showing improvement on their deer, and especially a lot of growth on their deer. So we're really excited about that to see as it unfolds throughout the course of the hunting season. So that's where we're at with the deer. As far as elk, probably one of our #1 viewers right here, guys, is people talking about elk, watching elk. Almost anywhere you're at in the country, these elk are going to be hard-horned right now. Again, I personally have not seen anything other than real young bulls. Real young bull spikes are still in velvet, but most of your branch antler bulls, especially your dominant bulls, are all hard-horned. I have not seen a bull that is not right now, and we love seeing that. The testosterone's flowing, they're rubbing, raking. Throughout the last couple days of scouting, I've actually even heard quite a few bugling. The big thing we're going to talk about with this, guys, is don't let it fool you. Most of this is younger bulls talking. They're excited. But really, depending on where you're elk hunting, you're going to find many different situations. I know that there's a lot of bulls that are living well above tree line at 13,000 feet. You know, they've already had snow on them. And these bucks are moving along very quickly. You know, some of these bulls have already gathered some cows. These are the bulls sometimes that are bugling right now. They have some satellites, and it's almost presenting a rut situation. The rut is not happening yet, more than likely, but there are definitely pre-stages of it. It's very early stages, basically called a pre-rut, where these animals are showing the signs of it. And these will be the first animals to rut once it actually comes time to go here in the next week or so. But again, we're seeing that. We're also seeing very low country, you know, say 5,000 feet in elevation, extremely hot temperatures. And a lot of these bulls are still in bachelor groups. They just lost their velvet. They are on the further stages away from the rut. You know, it'll be another week or two before they start showing those signs. It'll really be mid-September before these animals are actually true blue, full going at the rut. So with that said, depending on your situation, it's unbelievable how we're seeing animals in the full stages, or not full stages, but full stages of pre-rut and no signs of rut. So it gets hard for us to deliver information to you, because some people out there, I'm going to tell to almost hunt as a pre-stage of a rut, and other people, I think your best odds is hunting water and or spot and stalk with no signs of the rut activity. So you, the listeners, really have to break down your situation. Where are you going to be elk hunting this week? Where are your animals at? What are your conditions? I know I will be out most of this week watching some animals. The actual, you know, a good friend of mine and the guy that's basically running some of these feeds, Tim Glom, he's going to be out on elk hunt. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with him this year. He's going to be the guinea pig. He's a guy that has not had a lot of success bow hunting bulls, shot cows, shot some animals. Basically, you know, he's new to hunting in the last, you know, 8 years or 7 years. He's the guinea pig. We're going to take him, a typical hunter, you know, runs the normal job, you know, the 9 to 5 type situation, and I'm going to piggyback with him, and we're going to break it down to you, the hunter. We're going to show, hey, here's what I've done in the past, and here's why it wasn't successful. Here's what we're changing to make it successful. So I'll actually be in the woods with him this coming weekend, and you can watch where we're at, what we're doing, and how we approach these animals. But as I watch these animals this week, this is what I'm watching for. As I'm scouting this week, I am watching the individual animals. I'm watching how they interact with other animals. So I'm watching how a big dominant bull reacts around younger bulls, how he reacts around cows. You know, I'm watching my thermals. This is the week where the thermals are the most important. So as much as I'm scouting and learning the animals, I'm watching my thermals. When we say thermals, we're watching the direction of the wind. So you actually have true wind, which is weather dictated. You know, it could blow any direction out there depending on barometric pressure, basically. And then you have your thermals chasing temperature. So on a calm day, your thermals will basically go up or down the mountain. Now, if all of a sudden you have a storm approach and you add wind to your thermals, who knows what it's going to be doing. But throughout this week, I'm watching those thermals. I'm checking the actual weather to watch my wind, and I'm going to build a good game plan for Saturday. Now, the big thing is going to be Friday. So Friday, when I'm out in there, I'm watching exactly where this animal's at, what he's doing, how he's interacting with these other animals. I'm watching where he beds down. I'm watching where he comes out of his bed and where he's at Friday night, so I can make my approach Saturday morning. With that said, I'm watching these animals. I have animals right now that I've seen this last week. I talked about some slight bugling. I have a couple bulls that have already gathered some cows. They got some younger bulls hanging around. They're going to be satellite bulls. Since there's not a true rut taking place right now, I'm not calling them satellite bulls because it's not like they're chasing each other around. They're basically a big happy family living together. But over the course of the next couple weeks, it will turn into that very predominant harem, you know, where the satellite bulls will be active, chasing around. The big bulls will be, you know, running them around, and these bulls will start breeding. The reason I'm watching this bull right here with some cows is because he's going to present the opportunity to possibly hunt him like a rut situation. When I say rut situation, again, I have a bull with cows, satellites. A lot of people will see this and they will go into this situation in a calling fashion. They're going to try to call that bull in. It's not there yet. The rut's not taking place enough. This bull is not going to be callable to. He's actually doing some bugling, but again, I think it's more just warming up the old windpipes, getting ready to start that whole situation over the next couple weeks. But the reason I talk about rut activity, this particular bull and the cows that he's with has a lot of calves in the herd. So as I watch this bull, come Friday, if these calves start to wander, if this bull does not keep these cows tight, there's an opportunity for me to go in Saturday and actually pretend to be a calf, a lost calf. So if that bull's on one side of the harem and I can get on that side of the harem, I can actually do basically a calf call, a real fast-paced, loud cow call, a little shorter than normal, and I can actually come into that herd pretending to be a calf, and that bull will not pay that much attention to me. So I'm using a call as a distraction. I'm not trying to call that bull to me. I'm not trying to pull him anywhere. I'm basically saying, hey, I'm a calf. I wandered off too far. I'm coming back to your family. I'm coming back to the harem. And with that, hopefully walk in to actually take a shot. I can't tell you that's my game plan now, but the way that this animal's acting, it might be an option. The other option is to really watch this animal, and as he's walking to and from the bedding zones, he walks slow enough to where there might be an opportunity for us to literally sneak in and do a spot and stalk and take a shot that way. If you have a good enough pattern, good enough wind, a lot of times you can walk up on an elk and take the shot. Everybody thinks you have to call, but a lot of times you can literally make that approach, walk up, and take a shot. People do not do it enough. Find the animals, build the patterns. Again, they're a fairly loud animal. They're walking loud. They're easy to keep track of. And a lot of times, if you move at a swift pace, somewhat quiet, a lot of times you can literally walk up within range and take that shot and make that shot opportunity on these animals. So our options for Saturday, lost calf coming into the herd or possibly just a spot and stalk. The last option, right now we don't have a lot of high temps, but I really hope that we have some high temps this coming week. If we have those high temps, I'm hoping they can possibly start to hit water a little more. I know the water holes that these animals are drinking out of, so I'm hoping if we get some higher temps, we can make these animals a little bit more patternable on these water sources, and that would be an option for Saturday. So right now, I'm going into this situation with a wide tool belt. Hey, I know that, there's a lot of calves in the herd. I know they're kind of widespread. So calf calling and walking into the group is an option. I'm not trying to call the animal to me. I'm not over calling, but I'm using it as a decoy, basically a distraction to come into the herd. I know that spotting and stalking is an option because I know his daily patterns. And lastly, I definitely know the water. If it gets warm enough, that's going to be an option for that bull. You have to put it into your situation. You have to know what your elk are doing to make your best approach. If you're in that, 1%, you're high country, the temperatures are cold, and your bulls are rutting, you might be in a calling situation. More than likely, you're not. More than likely, you're in a pre-stage like I'm looking at. So again, softer, lighter, quieter is more. Less is more. A lot of people are going to be nowhere near the rut. You're going to have bulls with bulls. You're going to have independent bulls, nowhere near cows. For you personally, your best options are going to be 100% spot and stalk and or hunting water. The biggest advice I have to you, again, we talk so much about calling. If the animals are not talking, you should not be talking. I say this every week. It's redundant. It's over-pushed, but it's the truth. If you call now, if you over-push these animals, you're going to ruin it for the next month. So again, do yourself a favor. Hunt these animals with that take it with a grain of salt, but take it easy on these animals. You shouldn't be calling if they're not talking. So again, match their tones. If they're talking a little bit, maybe you, the hunter, can talk a little bit. If they're full-blown talking, full-blown screaming, you can do a lot of calling. You can do a lot of screaming. But again, you're always going to be less than them in any situation. So if let's say their vocal tones, if they're talking 100 times an hour, you should be talking 75 times an hour or 50 times an hour. They're talking 10 times an hour, you should be talking 5 times an hour. Think of it like that. Think about that ratio. You should be talking half as much as them. But if they're not talking at all, you should 100% not be talking at all. So take that in mind as you go forth this coming weekend. Play your odds. Make sure you have the option of water, especially if it warms up or if it's warm in the area you're hunting. Water's a great source. Spotting and stalking. It's not an animal that you have to call to. It's a situation, if it's a big animal, it's noisy, it's walking through the woods, try stalking these animals. Try walking up and taking the shot. I promise you, it's easier than it sounds, and it's far more successful than you think it is. So spot and stalk. Find them, sneak up, try to take that shot. Take it easy, look for all the other eyes, look for the additional cows, look for the satellites, but sneaking up on these animals is a great way to harvest them. And then lastly, if it's the right time, the right situation, calling is a great approach for these animals, so keep that in mind. Guys, I just got a note across the teleprompter. We did lose connection with everybody at the Tightline Outdoor page, as well as the Nate Zelinsky Facebook page. Hate to see that. Guys, make sure you give my Facebook page a like. Again, it's Nate Zelinsky, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. But we actually lost that feed there. So if you were watching that feed and lost it and came to another channel, thank you so much for coming across. If you lost a channel, you didn't recover, if you're seeing this somehow, we apologize that we lost that broadcast at Tightline Outdoors, as well as Nate Zelinsky. So again, a huge apology for that. Guys, the last thing we're going to talk about here real quick is the bear hunt. And I'm also going to be going this week to join up with my buddy again, as we did a couple weeks ago on his sheep hunt. My good friend actually has been on sheep for 6 days straight. Got to 50 to 70 yards quite a bit, has not been able to take the shot. They keep busting him on hillsides, super gravel, rocky areas, making noise trying to draw. I had a rough go on a couple of these sheep hunts, but I'll be joining him sometime in the next 3 days in between scouting for elk and deer. So make sure you go to the Nate Zelinsky Facebook page. That's where all that footage of this sheep hunt will be. So this week I'll be bringing you live information of a sheep hunt. If you've never been there, I'll tell you, it's extreme. It's unbelievable country. It's definitely an extreme challenge just because most of this is open hillsides amongst the high country. But make sure you go to the Nate Zelinsky Facebook page to see me on all this live hunts with the sheep. But the last thing we're talking about is the bear hunt. Right now, these bears are upping their food source dramatically. So right now, we have sarvice berries, we have a lot of raspberries, and there's a few other berries depending on where you're at. So these bears are bulking up. They're putting on fat. They're putting on weight for the upcoming hibernation that'll happen later on here in a couple months. With that said, these animals are hitting berries hard. So now, to where my bears literally 2 to 3 weeks ago were almost 100% nocturnal, now I'm starting to see these animals during the day. So I'm starting to see them for an hour or two in the morning and a good hour at night, which is very, very encouraging. I just had these animals on trail cams. I had no idea how I was going to harvest them. You always hope they're going to come out for berries, but with a lot of rain and a lot of cooler temperatures or sometimes hotter temperatures, you never know when they're going to start spending that extra time during the day. The bear season for me opens up September 2nd. So with that said, I know that if they're out during the day now, hopefully they will continue to be out during the day as we approach September and actually get in the woods harvest or to chase these bears to hopefully make that shot. So right now for me, the bears are spending more time during the day. It's 100% a relationship between hunting berry fields and hunting water. As they start to really increase their daily food source, they're eating more berries and staying out longer, hopefully that sun starts to beat down on them. Hopefully it makes them hot. Hopefully they start drinking more. So generally speaking, when I see the food source increase in intake, I usually see the water increase. So hopefully that the more they eat, the more they have to drink. So we're really putting that relationship between the berries and the water holes, and a lot of times those can be somewhat close together. And really hoping that's going to bring a pattern to me right now. I have bears on a pattern right now. I got a couple giant boars that I don't quite have patterned yet. I know where they're at. I'm just hoping that they start to utilize the berries and the water a little more frequently to build that pattern on those animals to make us successful there. But again, everything big game, the muleys, the elk, whitetails, pronghorn, bears, sheep. Guys, we're going to be in the field live with all these animals over the next couple months. So make sure, again, if you are new to this, I am Nate Zelinsky. We do this live every single week, again, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Bowtech channel. So make sure you stay tuned for all that information. Again, make sure you also like the Nate Zelinsky page. Anything that doesn't go live on the Bowtech page will definitely go live on the Nate Zelinsky page. So guys, that was what our main topics were for tonight, prepping you for the upcoming weeks. Again, most of you have been out scouting. You've done the education. Don't ruin it. That's my biggest advice. Make sure that you have the education with you, have the thought process. Hey, I know what these animals are doing. If the situation is not right, don't push it. Step away, hunt them again the next hunt, the next day. But make sure you take that education, take the patterns, go into it with that confidence that you know what they're going to do. Put yourself in the right situation, and hopefully it leads to a successful hunt for you. Just like we did at that pronghorn. We knew where we were at. We knew it was going to be the options of a spot and stock or decoy hunting. We actually took the decoy, used it more of a spot and stock, and it was extremely successful for us. So guys, take the information. You have the information. Put it into play. Guys, it's going to make you successful this coming fall. So guys, again, I will see you live this week from the Nate Zelinsky page. I will see you also live next Monday with a lot of information from the sheep and elk hunts that I'll be on this coming week. So make sure you join me live next week, guys. Also, if you want to have updates of when any of the Bowtech smart shooters go live, make sure you text the keyword WATCH to 313131. Do it right now. Take out your cell phones. Text the keyword WATCH to 313131, and we will send you a notification every time we go live. Might be live in a studio, it might be live on a hunt, but I promise you, it's information that you want to have. So again, text the keyword WATCH to 313131. Guys, I'm Nate Zelinsky. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me.